Hi, Paige here, the One Foot Flipper. Today we're going to look at the Goodwill outlet, or the bins as it's often called. I'm going to go over everything you as a new bin shopper needs to know in order to succeed in this environment, because I'm sure plenty of you heard about the place, but you've also heard some scary stories, and maybe you just want to know what it's really like. And I'd also like to thank Josh and Haley, Harry Tornado, for the B-roll footage in this video, as I am not able to personally record my own bins trip because of my disabilities. The camera doesn't catch anything if I'm in the wheelchair, and if I'm stumbling on my prosthetic leg, it's even worse. It's just wobbling all over the place and doesn't take good video. Okay, the first thing you want to know is that people are going to be lining up outside the place long before it opens. I can get to my bins a half hour early and there's still at least 20 people in line before me. And you know, the length of that line is going to vary wildly from location to location. And it's definitely going to be affected by the way that they bring out the bins. We'll talk about that part later, because not every place brings out the bins the same way. Now, my location and many others are going to have signs saying that you cannot hold places in line using items. You have to be physically present in line. However, you're also extremely likely, especially if you show up early, to see a line that consists mostly of water bottles, lawn chairs, and IKEA bags, because a good portion of the community do not respect the rules. And seemingly everybody else lets them get away with it because, you know, who wants to cause a big disturbance in public and possibly get into a fight with somebody who won't respect the rules? So you just end up getting in line and not saying anything about it. Now, minutes before the door opens, usually a bunch of line jumpers will show up. These will usually be young clothing sourcers, and what they're going to do is they'll pull in 2 minutes before the doors are going to open. They'll get out of their cars, they'll come towards the line looking for anybody they know, and then they'll cut the line and get in line with the person they know, you know, acting like they'd been there the entire time. And once again, nobody ever does or says anything about that. Just get used to it unless you're going to become the Goodwill bins martyr. Really, that line cheating is the first of many bin sins that you're going to see. And those last second jumpers would annoy me more. However, most of them don't even get carts, and they're so incredibly selective that I often see them walk out the door with nothing, or one item, or maybe two. I don't even think a lot of them are actually resellers. They're just sourcing for their own clothes or to show off things on Instagram, that sort of thing. Now, you might be wondering if it's even important to be in the front of the line in the first place. And for most people, that answer is going to be no. However, if you're specifically going for sneakers or golf clubs, then you probably want to get there pretty early on. The golf club guys, they're going to sprint in without a cart and grab every golf bag in the place before half the line is even in the door. Then they'll chuck all those golf clubs into a cart before they go looking for other things, if they do things besides golf. And there are inevitably going to be one or more sneaker sourcers who will manage to have an entire cart filled with sneakers within the first few minutes. Because a lot of these guys aren't just sourcing to resell on eBay. They are sourcing to send these sneakers in bulk to other countries, usually their home country, because they're often immigrants. So they are not looking for the same sort of quality that you might be looking for. But then even the ones who are looking for quality are probably going to be grabbing en masse, because they go so quickly, and then looking through them and tossing the bad ones back later. For everybody else, it's really a matter of figuring out if you're going to need a cart or not, and learning through trial and error how early you have to be in the line to get a cart. Now, my location used to run out of carts before the entire line could make it in. But they got a lot more carts recently, and now they tend to run out of carts well after opening, as the latecomers pick off the remaining carts and the fast shoppers get a second cart to fill up. They'll still all be gone a half hour or 45 minutes after opening, but you usually, as long as you show up around opening, you're going to get a cart. Now, when they open the doors and you come in, follow the main traffic of the people ahead of you. And by goodness, if the carts are lined up in front of a bunch of bins or something like that, pull your cart from the end of the rows of carts. Don't pull it from the beginning and then try to back up against the flow of 100 people behind you, slowing all of them down, if not completely stopping them. And if you really want to commit the second set of the bins, then by all means, pull your cart from the front, backing it up, slowing everyone down, and then try to go the wrong way against all that incoming traffic with your cart. Now, some locations may have a completely different cart setup, or leave them all out in the parking lot. or may otherwise be less cramped, so that might not be an issue. But hey, let's talk about cart etiquette for a moment. You should be pushing your cart in front of you, not pulling it behind you in most cases. When you pull it behind you, you're blocking off an area that you've already finished with, and you're keeping other people from accessing that area that you've already looked through. And if you truly want to commit a bin sin, then you should both push a cart in front of you and pull another cart behind you. That blocks off a huge area from other shoppers, and everybody who I've ever seen do this also moves at a snail's pace. Now, I also personally always try to keep to the right-hand side of the aisle, and it seems like about 70% of people do this, but there's that other 30% of people who their brain doesn't go to the driving analogy, and they're instead keeping left and trying to move against traffic the entire time, creating traffic jams. Not much anything you can do about it, just try to move the same direction that most everybody else is moving. Let's talk for a minute in differences in bins operations. Some locations, I think it's the majority of them, especially the ones you might see online in videos, they will bring out new bins while people are shopping. Others do not do this. The two locations in my area, they do not do any restocking while they're open at all. Instead, they close in the middle of the day for a midday restock, sometimes getting rid of everything in the entire place, or sometimes just bringing in some new items or dumping it on the top. It all depends on how much stuff they have to deal with that day. I personally think the midday restock is vastly superior to having the new bins being pushed out, having people fight over it, old ladies get knocked down, people get hurt, the rude people coming out on top. I do not like the locations that push the new bins out. Now, you might wonder, how are these things priced at the bins? Well, every location is going to have a by weight price that's good for most everything in the place. My location currently charges $2.09 a pound. And most locations will have other price schedules for other items as well. Glass at my location is 19 cents a pound. And at my location, glass also seems to cover ceramics and trinkets that look like they're glass. At my bins, they separate that stuff off and do a few rows in one corner. And from what I understand, every bin probably has a separate price for books, which is usually by the inch. And it's more expensive by the inch than I would have thought it would be. I think it's like 40 cents an inch. Seems like it should be cheaper than that, honestly. And I've heard of other locations that have special prices on other media, but my location doesn't do that. And some location, like Josh Harry Tornado's location, they have special prices on plush, letting you fill up an entire big trash bag for a very low price. Now, your very large items, they will not be sold by weight. They will often be in a separate area, and they'll have their own price tags on them. And the pricing schemes on these is going to vary from location to location, because Goodwill isn't one overarching thing. It's sort of strange in that it's a franchise charity, so there's different organizations run different Goodwills and they run them differently, and it goes the same for the outlets. My location used to put logical cheap prices on everything in the furniture area, but now they've stopped doing that. Now the price depends on which day of the week it is. I believe everything in the furniture area is $7 on Friday, and it goes down to by $1 each day until it's $1 on Thursday, in which I guess they throw it all away then and start over at $7 again on Friday. Some locations will also have pallets of merchandise as well. Mine sometimes does, but I've never checked those out because I'm not set up to handle them, and I haven't seen good results from the people who have bought men's pallets before, so I don't have any interest in that. Maybe you do. Maybe you'd have a different experience. If you do, post it in the comments. But you'll also find furniture and other very heavy items will show up in the normal bins as well. Now, in most locations, you can get the manager or even the experienced cashiers to put a separate price on these items. And this is one of the reasons, other than, just trying to be a good person, that I treat every single person working at the bins with the highest level of respect. I address every man as sir. I don't call the women ma'am because the ladies working at my bins, they're all younger than me. None of them want to hear an old fat guy in a wheelchair call them ma'am. They don't want that, but I still treat them with the highest level of respect. I express my appreciation for their help and say how nice it is to see them again. And getting prices put on heavy items is why I can regularly purchase bowling balls, vintage computers, keyboard, big old Casio keyboards, and other heavy items that would not normally be worth it at the bins prices. I don't think getting a price put on something is any sort of secret, but there are no signs or anything to indicate that this can be done. And if you're the kind of person who sticks to yourself and doesn't talk to anybody else, you could go to the bins for years every day and never figure that out. So I think a lot of people aren't aware of it. Now, you're going to want to organize your shopping trip for the maximum profit. I always try to bring friends or family if I can. These people do not even have to be good at picking. Even a child can understand the basic directions of fill the cart with things that you think are valuable. You wouldn't believe the stuff my daughter has found over the years, even when she was much younger than she is now. She's 13 now. She's got a really good eye now, but even when she was 9, she was finding good stuff. My wife pretty much hates the bins with a passion. When I can get her to go, she only looks to look at the glass in the books and doesn't want to go into any of the busier areas, so I just let her do her thing and she does it. Otherwise, if I have one friend with me, and since I'm a hard goods seller, I'm not a clothing seller, I will start on one end of the hard goods and they will start on the other end of the hard goods. If I am lucky enough to have 2 friends, yes, I actually do have 2 friends, can you believe it? Then I will have the second friend start on the hat, backpack, and shoe area, specifically grabbing hats and backpacks. We pretty much ignore shoes because I don't know women's shoes, and the men's shoes are picked over so fast it's not even worth looking for it. And then when they're done with that area, because it's not that big, move to the middle of the hard goods. What you probably don't want to do is don't send your untrained friends and family into the clothing area. Clothing is actually an expert area, and untrained eyes are not good at picking clothes. Now, once everyone has a full cart, we'll meet up at the front and we'll start checking the comps on our items. At this point, we're going to try to find another cart. That way we can slowly empty the keepers into that new cart. Sort it, because we'll have multiple carts, sort our good items into that cart while throwing the losers back into the closest bin. And as you're sorting through your finds, remember to separate out all the stuff that's going to be priced differently. We'll normally put the glass items in that child's seat portion at the front of the cart, and we'll put the books underneath. That way we can easily pull them out and put them on the counter before our cart is placed on the scale. Because that's how if you got a bunch of stuff, they literally just put your cart on the scale. The scale's already been zeroed to what the carts are supposed to weigh. Is it actually true? There's lots of conspiracies on that. I do know every once in a while I get a cart with a missing piece, and I'm kind of happy that I know I'm going to be a little bit light on that trip. And if we've got any items that we're going to be asking for manual pricing on, we will place those in a second cart. Now, if the checkout line is long or we have plenty of people, then we're going to send one person over to go check out the remaining books. A lot of booksellers, they live and die by the barcodes, and if you can't scan that book, a lot of booksellers will not even look at them. We found plenty of valuable books that don't have barcodes, even after 10 booksellers have swept the entire section clean, because they weren't looking at anything that didn't have a barcode. Now, once I'm done with all that, I go ahead and pay, load everything into the van, decide if I want to go back in. Now, if you're going back in, especially if it's been a good hour after open, then you're going to want to change your strategy. Forget about speed. Speed's no longer an issue because all the obvious stuff will already be gone. You're not going to find a Nintendo 64 sitting on top of a bin an hour and a half after they opened. Not going to happen. You're going to be looking for the things that people have overlooked. So you want to reach deep to the bottom of those bins. You want to investigate what are in those plain cardboard boxes or plastic bags that you see in the bin. And you want to probably try to price check and investigate strange items that you see that weren't worth your time earlier, but now it's not about time, now it's about diligence. And also, remember those young IKEA line jumpers I was talking about before? If you spot one of them going through their haul, it might be worth your effort, if you like to sell clothes, to price check the stuff they throw back. Those kids are often functioning on really high standards, trying to follow that Tekken Sports model of $30 minimum item. And many of them aren't really full-time resellers. They have little to no inventory space, often living with their parents or in a dorm room, or otherwise just not having an entire basement full of merchandise like many of us. So they're they will throw things back that might be perfectly adequate for your needs. Now, one thing you're not really going to find at the bins is video games. Any video games you find at the bins are only there by an accident of fate. Any that show up in the media section are going to be those worthless sports titles. You know, the ones that you can't give away, that they still for some reason put a $6.99 price tag on in the Goodwill, but never, ever, ever sell. Otherwise, I almost never find any disc-based video games at the bins. I have found a Nintendo 64 console. No price tag on it. One easy way to tell if something actually made it through a Goodwill store and went directly to the bins is whether or not it has a Goodwill price tag on it. A lot of your best stuff you find in the bins will not have a Goodwill price tag on it because it ended up directly to the bins, because many Goodwill locations, they get more donations than they can handle, so a lot of stuff just goes directly to the outlet store. So I found a Nintendo 64 that way. It was inside a box with, you know, something else that was unrelated. I found 3 or 4 Nintendo handhelds. I found some various, you know, 1970s Pong clones. Most of those actually had been through the Goodwill system. They were just priced far too high. Most of those things were only worth like $10 to $15 for the most part. And I found a handful of NES cartridges, a few Genesis cartridges, Game Boy cartridges, that sort of thing. The kind of stuff that could be in a box or bag full of junk that just gets tossed directly into the bins by the Goodwill sorter and never actually gets looked through. All of that stuff is there by accident. You cannot show up to the bins expecting to find any actual video game stuff. The only video game stuff that I even see once a month is maybe the various VTech handhelds and educational pseudo consoles that use cartridges. Sometimes those are worth it, and sometimes they're not. Hey, let's talk about some equipment, some stuff you might want to bring to the bins with you, other than yourself and a friend. I always like to bring a box knife and a small Phillips screwdriver at a bare minimum. The box knife is for cutting things out of tangles of ribbon, yarn, wire. You'd be surprised how much time you can waste because the thing you want is wrapped up in a bunch of ribbon or is wrapped up in old Christmas lights that you know no one's going to purchase. Cut it out of that stuff and get it out of there. And you can also use the box knife to open boxes, because I see plenty of mystery brown cardboard boxes in the bins that don't really have any markings on them that are taped up. And I also will use the knife to cut posters out of frames, because a poster in a frame might cost $37. A poster outside of a frame might cost 37 cents. And no one's going to buy the poster in the frame, so don't worry about it. And also, if you try to sell the poster in the frame, it's also not going to sell because it's going to cost $67 to ship it. Now, the screwdriver is basically for checking battery compartments and battery-operated things. Doesn't matter how cool that Jimmy animated witch is, if the battery compartment still has the batteries in it from 1994 and is now nothing but rust and battery acid and has no chance of being resurrected outside of an act of God. Because once it gets really bad, not only is the battery department fried, a lot of times the battery acid will follow its way up those wires and get onto the circuit board that operates the thing in the first place, and then you're really out of luck unless you are an electronics repairman of the type that wouldn't be fixing Jimmy circuit boards. And sometimes I'll bring a grabby stick, this thing right here, but that's just because I'm operating in a wheelchair most of the time. Now, if you're next level cool, you might want to bring a scale with you. I've been thinking about making a postal scale on a base that's specifically decided to stick right on top of that little compartment that the child's supposed to sit in, so I can weigh things right there and determine how much they're going to cost me. Now, if you're going to bring anything into the bins, I put my name and my phone number on it. Anything, you know, that was big, you know, like my grabby stick that I bring into the bins, when I bring it, it's got my name and my phone number on it. I just do that so in case anybody questions me, I'm like, no, I brought this in with me. Other next level cool items you can bring with you are batteries. 4 AA batteries being the bare minimum if you're going to carry batteries. If you're really cool, you might want to branch out into AAAs or going up to that 6 AA batteries as well. C's and D's, unless you're specializing in camping equipment or some other weird stuff, I wouldn't bother with the C's or the D's. But what you could bring with you is one of those universal power supplies. They used to sell these at Radio Shack. I'm sure you can get on Amazon. What that's going to have is going to have switches on it to switch the voltage to the various voltages, and it's going to have a whole bunch of different plugs on the end, all the common ones, and that will allow you to test nearly anything that wants a pretty normal wall wart AC adapter. So carrying around one of those is worth your while if you're going to buy a lot of electronics. I don't carry one simply because it's hard to carry things in your pockets when you're in a wheelchair. They want to fall out, and I don't want to try to put on a weird vest, with an AC adapter on it and a grabby stick and batteries. Although maybe I should. I could look like Fat Rambo or something. Fat Rambo in a wheelchair. All right, here's some mistakes you can avoid. Most people, including myself, do not look over their finds closely enough. Then they get the things home and they find stains, broken zippers, broken or missing parts on other items. And the heavier the item is, the more money you're going to pay for it, so the more you need to look it over to make sure it doesn't have some sort of glaring flaw. And you should just start out with high expectations. You should start out with high standards in the first place, especially when it comes to things like clothing and plush. I promise you that you can find perfect clothing and perfect plush faster than you can sell it. You don't need to deal with the imperfect stuff unless it's so vintage that would still be a very valuable items with flaws. You pick up that cool Squishmallow, he's got a stain on the back, throw him back. I guarantee you will find perfect Squishmallows faster than you can sell them. Don't underestimate the weight of your items. Many times I've hefted some item in my hand and been like, oh, yep, this is 2 pounds. I bought it, and when I go to list it later, I find out, yeah, this was 4 pounds 9 ounces, and that difference in what I paid for it really kind of flipped it into the not worth it category. Kind of turned it from a $10 profit to a $5 profit, or 4 or 3 or break even. So be aware of what heavier items weigh. And also, be aware of lookalikes. Once you get comfortable, you will likely buy a lot of items without comping them. But make sure that you're actually buying what you think you're buying. Like, we buy a lot of Starbucks cups here. Usually the plastic ones with the straw, they're about this big. But Dollar Tree has a line of cups that are the same size and look as the large plastic Starbucks cups. Some of them even almost have the same pattern as some of them. And those Dollar Tree ones are worthless. So we now always double check any of those Starbucks cups we are getting to make sure that they're actually Starbucks before we buy them, so we don't bring home another Dollar Tree cup. There are some tricks that you might want to learn. You got your phone with you, you pull up a comp in that eBay app on something you're buying, go ahead, hit that heart to favorite that item right there. That way when you go to list it, you can go to your favorites, pull up that item, and hit sell similar, and you are already most of your way there. And some items are so cheap that you are wasting your bin's time even comping them. If for whatever reason you're buying dress patterns, which I don't suggest, but if you are, don't bother trying to comp them, just pick them up. They're going to cost 11 cents each. There's no reason for you to waste your time seeing whether or not that one's good, especially since they're all bad. I buy posters in decent condition without even unrolling them to see what they are, because my bin's time is more valuable than the 17 cents that the poster is going to cost me in the first place. Worst case scenario, I threw the poster away. I almost never throw a poster away, though. I will end up bulking a bunch of them together in the end, or using the complete loser posters as packing material rather than throwing them away. Now, keep going to the same bins over and over again. Over time, you might find there are some categories or subcategories of items that none of the daily regulars at your bins are experts in, or even shop at all. Once you figure it out, once one of those categories might be, then start being on the lookout for items in that category. My bins might have a couple of golf club guys there every day, but my bins does not seem to have a single vintage computer guy at all. That way then I know any vintage computer item I see is worth investigating, because the chance is very high that none of the 100 people who already walked by me has even looked at it. It's not like when I see a golf club an hour in. If I see a golf club an hour in, I can be certain that it's been looked at by multiple people and is trash. This category blindness has allowed me personally last year to finally, after many, many years of wanting one, pick up a vintage IBM 8086 class PC. And then later, 6 months later, I also picked up an 8086 based laptop as well. Those are items that I've been trying to get since I was 20 years old, and I finally got them both at the bins. I've also found multiple vintage keyboards, valuable floppy disk drives for early systems like Commodore and such, and almost all of which I found well into my shopping journey, not right at the beginning. You know, many people would pass those items by. Now, there are literally thousands of items out there that will show up at the bins where it is in your best interest to buy only part of the item. That bulky vacuum cleaner might only sell for $25 plus shipping on eBay, but that same vacuum cleaner might have a single part that weighs under a pound, which means you're going to pay less than $2 for it, but that part will sell for $20. That vintage cooler with a removable lid might not even be a break-even item if you buy the whole thing, particularly if it's not in great shape. However, the lid weighs less than a pound, and that lid might sell for $14 by itself. Don't feel bad about parting these items out at the bins either. The hard goods section, most of the stuff that goes into the hard goods section that morning is going to go into the dumpster that evening. You are that item's last chance. And if you save another version of the item out there in the world by just taking a piece off of one, you still kept one out of the dumpster. While if you didn't take that piece off, chances are they both went in the dumpster. The broken vacuum the other person had goes in the dumpster because you didn't provide the part, and the one that's all there also goes in the dumpster because wasn't anybody going to buy it in the first place. Hey, do you have any more suggestions of what I missed or any personal bin stories? Share them in the comments. I want to say thanks again to Harry Tornado for the footage, and I hope to see you again soon.